Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into one of the longest, most unbroken stories in all of human history. So, how do you even begin to tell a story that's 4,000 years long? I mean, where do you start? Well, the key is to look for a pattern, right? A kind of rhythm that repeats itself through all those millennia of emperors, rebels, and innovators. And for China, that pattern is something called the dynastic cycle. This is the main idea, the lens we're going to use to understand this huge history. Basically, it's this continuous cycle where a dynasty rises, supposedly with the approval of the heavens, they call it the mandate of heaven. It prospers for a while, then it starts to decay, gets corrupt or weak, and eventually it loses that mandate and gets replaced by a new one. It's this incredibly powerful story of renewal and collapse over and over again. So to make this whole huge story a bit easier to digest, we've broken it down. We'll cover the whole 4,000-year story by first looking at how the foundations were forged. Then we'll get into the imperial golden ages. After that, we'll see how the system survived through cycles of conquest. And finally, we'll witness the dramatic end of the empire itself. All right, let's get right into it. We're going all the way back to the very beginning, back to the river valleys where the whole blueprint for Chinese civilization was first drawn up. So China's story really starts along the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. This is where the earliest dynasties, the Xia, the Shang, and the Zhou, first popped up. They're the ones who really set the stage for literally thousands of years of rule and laid down the cultural bedrock for everything that came after. And check this out. Artifacts like these are just incredible for the stories they tell. These are oracle bones. The Shang dynasty used them for divination, to try and tell the future. But what's so important is that they have the earliest confirmed Chinese writing etched right into them. Finding these was huge. It literally moved the Shang dynasty from the world of legend and myth into actual verifiable history. Now, the dynasty that came next, the Zhou, was a total game changer. It's often called China's axial age because there was this explosion of ideas. This is the era that gave birth to the core philosophies that would shape China for, forever. You have the mandate of heaven, which is the idea that a ruler has a divine right to rule, but, and this is a big but, the people have the right to rebel if that ruler is unjust. Then there's Confucianism, which is all about social order, respect, duty, and knowing your place in a hierarchy. You've also got Taoism, which is about finding harmony by following the Tao, or the natural way of the universe. And finally, you have legalism, which is pretty much the opposite. It argued for absolute state control through super strict laws and really harsh punishments. Okay, so with all those big ideas swirling around, let's see what happened when they were actually put into practice. This is where we start to see the rise of some of the most powerful and sophisticated empires on the entire planet. All right, remember this date, 221 BC. This is the pivotal year. After centuries of bloody conflict between warring states, China is finally united as one single imperial state. And it's all thanks to this guy, its first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. I mean, he was absolutely ruthless, but man, was he effective. He standardized everything: weights, measures, money, and most importantly, the written language. So the Han dynasty comes next, and they basically take what the Qin started and build this incredible classical era on top of it. And you want to know how influential this period was? The dominant ethnic group in China today still proudly calls itself the Han Chinese. That's a legacy right there. And this slide really puts things into perspective. At the exact same time the Roman Empire was rising in the West, building all its famous roads and aqueducts, the Han dynasty was its absolute equal over in the East. They were pioneering the mass production of paper, perfecting the art of making silk, and opening up the legendary Silk Road. Two superpowers on opposite ends of the world. Fast forward a few centuries, and boom, another golden age. This time, it's the Tang dynasty. Their capital, Chang'an, wasn't just big, it was a vibrant cosmopolitan metropolis, literally the largest city on Earth at the time. The Tang era was just so confident and open. It was a true high point for art, for poetry, for technology, a culture so brilliant that it was copied and admired all across Asia. But you know how this goes. The dynastic cycle tells us that golden ages can't last forever. And sure enough, the system got tested again and again. China was about to face invasion, internal fracture, and even rule by outsiders. So the Song dynasty, which followed the Tang, is kind of a paradox. Militarily, yeah, they were a bit weaker, but in just about every other way, they were at an absolute peak. I'm talking about an explosion of innovation. They gave the world the first paper currency, they invented movable type printing, and they started using gunpowder in warfare in a big way. You could easily argue they were the most advanced society on the planet back then. And if you look at the next few hundred years, a really interesting pattern starts to show up. You get this back and forth, this cycle of dynasties led by native Han Chinese, like the Song and later the Ming, alternating with powerful dynasties that were founded by outside conquerors, people like the Mongols and the Manchus. This whole dynamic of being conquered, absorbing the conquerors, and then taking back control, it becomes a huge part of the story. Then, in the 13th century, something happens that many thought was impossible. The Mongols, led by Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan, they do it. They conquer all of China. Their Yun dynasty creates this period known as the Pax Mongolica, or the Mongol Peace. And what that meant was, for a short time, one power controlled the entire Silk Road, which just blew the doors open for trade and contact between China and Europe. But hey, it's the dynastic cycle, right? So that foreign rule, it was bound to lead to a pushback. And it did. The Ming dynasty rose up, overthrew the Mongols, and brought native Han rule back. This was a really interesting era because they were looking in two directions at once. They looked outward, sending these massive treasure fleets under Admiral Zheng He as far as Africa. And they also looked inward, pouring resources into huge projects like rebuilding the Great Wall that we all recognize today. And here we are, the last turn of the Great Imperial Wheel, the Qing dynasty. They were founded by Manchu invaders from the northeast, and they would become China's very last imperial dynasty. They reigned for almost 300 years, they expanded the empire to its biggest size ever, and they oversaw one final, glorious imperial peak right before facing a whole new set of challenges that the old dynastic cycle was just not equipped to handle. So now we get to the Great Collapse, the moment where this 2,000-year-old imperial system just breaks. It shatters under the incredible weight of problems from the inside and pressures from the outside that it had never seen before. The 19th century was an absolute catastrophe for the Qing. They suffered one humiliating military defeat after another to foreign powers, like in the Opium Wars. At the same time, they were dealing with these unbelievably devastating internal rebellions, like the Taiping Rebellion, which killed something like 20 million people. The old system just could not cope. It was falling apart. And you know, when the last emperor fell in 1912, it didn't bring peace, not even close. It basically unleashed decades of pure chaos. As you can see here, the new Republic of China just crumbled almost immediately, which led to this long, brutal civil war between the nationalists and the communists, both fighting for the soul of China. Finally, by 1949, the fighting on the mainland is over. The communists, led by Mao Zedong, have won. He stands in Beijing and proclaims the founding of the People's Republic of China. And just like that, the nation is fundamentally reshaped, and a brand new and very different political era begins. From there, the path to where we are today was, well, it was wild, it was tumultuous, and it moved at a completely breathtaking speed. You had the intense political chaos of the Cultural Revolution, but then a dramatic pivot. In 1978, the country started a policy of reform and opening up, which kicked off these sweeping economic changes. And that transformation is what set China on the course to become the global power it is today. Which brings us, finally, to today. After 4 millennia of dynasties rising and falling, of empires breaking apart and coming back together, one of the world's oldest civilizations is now navigating a completely new global role. The dynastic cycle, that pattern that defined its history for thousands of years, it's over. So the real question, the one we're left with, is what pattern comes next?